How y'all doing out there? Left Lane here, coming making another video. It's January 10th, 2018. Here's the video that I have been promising you for quite a while. It's the video about Butch Jones, why he failed as a coach, and why he continued to remain as head coach at the University of Tennessee. I think one of the reasons that it was a failure was his SEC record. 14-24 in 5 years. I mean, there was 2 games that weren't included because he was no longer the coach. So it would have been 14-26. His overall record at Tennessee was 34-27. I didn't actually calculate the percentage on that. And his overall career record was 84-54. That included Central Michigan, Cincinnati, and Tennessee. This season really revealed to everyone why it was a failure. And it's because he was unable to develop talent. That was the main reason. He could get the talent to come to Tennessee, but he couldn't develop the talent. And 2 guys in particular that were, well, a couple of guys, I won't just say 2 in particular, but Mikhail McKenzie and Shy Tuttle. Now, McKenzie has declared for the draft. I think it's Cale McKenzie, excuse me. He's declared for the draft. 72 tackles and 3 sacks. Tell me how that's worthy of the NFL draft. I mean, if the guy would have stayed one more year under working with Pruitt, the guy probably could go in first to second round. I will be truly surprised if he's even drafted. So now that he's declared for the draft, he can't come back to university because when he declares for the draft, he forfeits his scholarship. So he either has to pay for his own way or he doesn't finish his degree, and that would be a shame. The purpose of coming to college is to get your degree. And then you got guys like Jalen Hurd. You know, the kid started out, first couple seasons did really well. But that goes back to not being able to develop talent. And I think, just not having good assistant coaches. You not only as a head coach have to know what he's doing, but you have to have really good assistant coaches. Because if you don't, this is what happens. They never had the right offensive system. They should have been running a power I or I formation and with a lead fullback. I said, because of Jalen's size, I said, you're not just going to bust through holes. If he could have had a lead back, especially as bad as our offensive line has been over these last 5 years, that would have helped out our running game in a really big way. But we continued, to stick with the read option. And that's where I think where we failed, where he failed. But there's reasons why he continued to be the head coach. Well, number one, I think the athletic director favored Jones for some reason. Obviously, we'll never know that, but I have reasons written in stone why he was there, right here in front of me. Not actually stone, but, and I'll give you, there's a few of them. Guys like Alvin Kamara, guys like Cam Sutton, Jalen Reeves-Maven, Jawan Jennings, Von Pearson, John Kelly, Derek Barnett. But the number one reason why Coach Jones stayed at Tennessee for 5 years was quarterback Joshua Dobbs. And then, the flip side of that, say, whoa, well, he couldn't develop talent. A lot of these guys that I just mentioned here, they have something in common. They have what they call the intangibles, things you can't teach. They were just naturally gifted players. There's a lot of things that you didn't teach these guys. They just naturally had an ability for playing this game. And Joshua Dobbs was a prime example of that. He just had a way of escaping defenders and picking up yards and be able to make throws. I mean, he had almost 3,000 yards. He was just shy of 3,000 yards in his senior season. I mean, and he had a way of even when the pocket was collapsing around him, he had a way of escaping the pocket, avoiding a sack, and turn it into a gain on the ground or a decent pass. And after he graduated, in comes, I want to say Justin Worley, but Garantano and the other guy. I'm sorry, I'm just a little unprepared, but you know who I'm talking about. But you could tell that they were not developed the way they should be. Not at SEC level. Maybe at Cincinnati, or maybe a Division II, or maybe something like that, or maybe a Group of 5 conference, but not the SEC. Certainly not the SEC. So, and then the offensive line. I mean, at the end of this, obviously, there were some injuries, but we just, constantly had, especially the last 2 years, there were injury after injury after it, and it doesn't make sense. One season, okay, I get it. But the injuries, these guys should not be having these injuries. I understand freak things happen, but it seemed like even leading up to the season, we had injuries. And it was like every game, a couple of guys, it was unreal. And I think that goes to conditioning, guys weren't conditioned right, and they weren't beefing up. I don't know. I'm not a strength and conditioning coach, so I don't know the answer. But it just seemed like they were constantly getting injured. And that hurt us, especially this past season, where our offensive line at the end of the season had 4 freshmen. How can you play 4 freshmen on the offensive line and expect to win? 4 juniors, 4 seniors, even 4 sophomores. Not 4 freshmen. They don't even have an off season with the team. A complete full off season. Like I said, that was our weakest point. Was the secondary, or not secondary, was the offensive line and the quarterback, because that was our worst performance out of any positions all year long. Those are my reasons. Dobbs held this team together. Once he was gone, there went the future. Guys like Riley Ferguson and Nathan Peterman, look what those guys did once they left. Once they got into a good system, look what they were able to do with good coaches. Look what they did. I wish I would have had the stats for Riley Ferguson this past year. He was tearing it up in Memphis. But so that's kind of, I want to share one thing with you here. My point about Dobbs. Okay, Jones was 34-27 overall. With Dobbs, 23-12. Okay? Without Dobbs, 11-15. That, my friend, tells the story that backs up what I'm saying. Dobbs was the reason Jones lasted as long as he did. Once he was gone, so was Jones. So there's the video. I appreciate y'all watching. If you disagree with me on this, if you think I'm wrong, if you think I don't know what I'm talking about, or maybe you agree with me, maybe you have some stats that I didn't have that you could add to this. Anything like that, just leave those in the comment section. And if you do, I will respond to you. So hit like, hit subscribe, and thanks for watching.